So, Shauna, what made you write the letter, a very powerful letter that you wrote?
When I heard Representative Akin's comments this past Sunday, I was deeply offended. And I was offended on two separate levels. First, because of this notion that a woman's body can somehow shut down when she's being raped and will then not conceive a child, is absolutely a falsity, biologically speaking. But I also felt like that comment was an attempt to delegitimize my experience and my rape, since my rape did result in a conception. And then I was also really upset by this notion of this qualifier, this idea of legitimate rape, because I think that it reinvigorates this argument that we've long struggled with, which is that that a woman always cries rape, that a woman can't be trusted, and that ultimately in a rape trial it is the woman and not the man who is on trial.
And did you feel all over again that somehow you had to justify to people that you were actually raped, that you didn't encourage your attacker in any way?
Absolutely. I couldn't have said it better. You know, rape is a crime that there are a lot of suspicions surrounding it. You know, people want to know, what were you wearing? Where were you raped? Did you scream? How loudly did you scream? And now to think that I might have to justify myself to someone that, yes, I indeed was raped, just because they doubt that I couldn't have conceived this child through rape. It's just a ridiculous notion. It was deeply offensive.
When you were raped at the age of 21, that in itself clearly is an unimaginably traumatic thing to happen. When you then discovered that you were pregnant, what went through your mind at that point?
You know, no one feeling really stands out. I was feeling a multitude of different things. I was shocked. I was absolutely scared, terrified, really. But then I also felt a lot of shame because not immediately, but in the days and weeks after my rape, I was kind of starting to feel that there was this bond or this kinship developing between me and this life growing inside of me, and I didn't understand that. I didn't understand how I could feel positively towards something that I think people traditionally assume you're supposed to feel negatively towards. And so as a result of that, I felt like a bad rape victim. You know, like I was just doing a really bad job of being a rape victim.
Did the thought of terminating the pregnancy go through your mind? How quickly did you suppress that thought, if it did?
The thought of termination went through my mind, and it was honestly an issue that I struggled up with right until the 3-month mark, when I could legally have an abortion in my state. And it was a really difficult issue, one that I struggled with. I don't want anyone to kind of take away the message that for me it was, I loved this child from day one and knew I was going to have her. You know, there were a multitude of feelings that I was experiencing, and it took a long time to come to the decision that I feel and honestly believe was right for me.
You felt feelings of hatred?
I did. You know, I never felt feelings of hatred towards the child. I felt feelings of hatred towards what had happened to me. I felt sorry for this life growing inside of me. I wondered what kind of life this little person would have if I acted to allow him or her to come into the world. Those are thoughts I had, but hatred really wasn't a thought I had.
When you see your 7-year-old daughter now, do you ever have any of those feelings still?
You know, I don't. I remember being pregnant and trying to emotionally prepare myself for the fact that she might look like him, and as fate would have it, as luck would have it, you know, everybody says that she's the mini-me. She looks just like me, and that's phenomenal and wonderful to me. And you know, I look at her and I don't necessarily see me, to be honest with you. I see this own little unique person who is wonderful in so many ways. I've never looked at her and have seen her as an extension of my attacker. That's never crossed my mind. But you know, like I said, I also don't look at her and see me. You know, she's her own unique person, and she's amazing.
That's quite incredible to be able to detach her so completely from the tragedy which befell you. How do you do that? Do you find yourself consciously having to do that, or is it completely subconscious?
For me, it was something that I think was subconsciously something I was feeling when I was pregnant in those first 3 months. But really, the day that I made the decision to have her, I just think that ever since that moment, I've never looked at her as being any kind of extension from him. I don't know why that's how I responded, but you know, I really view her as a person that saved me in so many ways from such a terrible tragedy, and maybe that helps me to look at her in such positive ways.
What have you told her about her father?
So my daughter's almost 8, so she doesn't understand what sex is, you know, let alone what rape is. She does know that, you know, most people have a mommy and a daddy, and I've told her, I said, you know, technically speaking, you do have a father. However, there are different family situations, families of all different shapes and sizes, and sometimes mommies are involved, sometimes daddies are involved, sometimes both are involved. And the way our family works, it's just her and I, and that's wonderful, and that's to be celebrated.
Will you tell her eventually about what happened?
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to. I think that's one of those things that I'm going to owe her, because I think she's going to be curious. And you know, part of the advocacy work I do is to try to get people to be a little bit more kinder and gentler in the way that they talk about children who are conceived in rape, because I don't ever want her to grow up and hear terms like that rapist child or that animal's child and think that she is defined by her beginnings, because really she's so much more than that.
Are you worried about how she...
That's just where she started.
Are you worried, though, about how she might react?
Sorry, I was just going to say, that's just where she started, but it's not where she's going to end.
Are you worried, though, about how she might react?
Absolutely, I'm worried. I don't think that anyone in my situation can avoid that, but I can just hope that she's understood from the very beginning that her mom loves her and adores her, and that I see so much value in her, and that's going to be her takeaway. And I expect her to be upset, but I think we'll be able to handle it.
Are you scared that she might, at the minute she can get on the internet, she might discover by accident what happened to you?
Yeah, I think we're going to have that talk before she's at the age where she's surfing on the internet. You know, but right now she's, you know, blissfully in the world of baby dolls and toys, and we don't have to worry about that right now.
Was Todd Akin's apology, did that make any difference to you?
It didn't, actually. I think the apology was more hurtful to me than it was helpful.
Why was that?
You know, his initial apology was that he just misspoke, and you know, my thought is that he's a legislator, and he has a platform that is a very powerful platform. And so he, of all people, needs to be very careful about what he says. And I don't believe that he could have just misspoke in this situation. First, because the comments were ignorant, but then also second, this idea of legitimate rape or illegitimate rape. You know, we've worked hundreds of years in this country to try to get rid of that kind of discussion. And in a single instance, he reinvigorated it.
Republicans like Todd Akin believe that even if you've been raped, you shouldn't be allowed to have an abortion. Given that you've created something so precious out of this dark moment in your life. Do you agree with him there? Would you urge other women who have been through what you've been through not to have an abortion?
You know, that's a very difficult issue for me. I do not advocate on behalf of the pro-life movement. I do not advocate on behalf of the pro-choice movement. But if I was speaking one-on-one with a woman who was pregnant through rape, you know, first and foremost, I would value her feelings, because I think that any woman's feelings to this situation are legitimate and ought to be valued. But I think the second thing that I would do is just, you know, maybe encourage her to take just a little bit of time, if she could, and not jump to any kind of rash decision, because I think that you'll find that your feelings, even, you know, a few days or a few weeks or even a month after the event, might change. They might not, but to the extent that they might, you know, I'd like the woman to keep open that opportunity, because I've had such joy with my daughter, and I wouldn't want to deny that to anyone else.
What is the impact of all of this on the Republican campaign and Mitt Romney's bid for the presidency? Has he done enough to calm all this down?
You know, I think that Romney, he came out and he stated that he does not believe what Representative Akin believes, which is, you know, he does not support the pro-life movement in all its various facets. In other words, he supports a rape exception. But I think that what Romney missed out on was a really important opportunity to talk about raped women, this idea of legitimate rape victims versus illegitimate rape victims. I think he had a really key moment there to really touch on that and give a lot of hope to women who are feeling constant shame because of the judgments that exist in society. And he didn't address that, and that was really disappointing to me. And I really wish that he would have, because it would have been a great opportunity.
What does it say more generally? We've had a controversy over this side of the Atlantic about some remarks by an MP here about the WikiLeaks founder, Julian Assange. What does all of this say about male politicians' approach to women, and particularly violence against women?
You know, I don't understand it. I just feel like people aren't getting the issue. You know, rape is a very real crime, and, you know, I'm an attorney, and rape is one of the only situations I can conceive of where, from the second a woman says, "I was raped," we're immediately suspicious, and we want to know every little detail, because we have to be able to judge for ourselves whether or not what she's saying is true. And that's odd, because normally in any other circumstance we leave that decision-making to the court. And so we really need to, I think, get rid of this notion that it's the woman on trial and not the man on trial. You know, certainly some of those issues will become pertinent at the trial, but for us as a society to talk about it from day one, I just think is very wrong.
Just finally, how does what happened to you when you were 21, how does that still define your life?
It took me a long time to realize that the number one feeling that I had coming out of my rape was a deep sense of mourning. And that was a mourning for the death of who I was before that day. You know, I was vibrant, I was confident, I had a certain innocence about me. And ever since the day that rape happened, I haven't been able to feel comfortable in my skin yet, you know, even 8 years later. I have days that are fantastic. I even have long spans, you know, months that are fantastic. But it's strange how you know, a comment from Representative Akin can lead me kind of spiraling back down into the feelings of shame and judgment against myself, wondering if there was anything that I could have done. You know, so this experience, this rape, defines every part of me.
Shauna Prewitt, thank you very much for joining us.